Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we'll delve into the story of June Carter Cash, an American country singer and songwriter. Her life began high in the misty folds of Virginia's Clinch Mountain Range, where winter winds whistle through chestnut boards and a coal oil lamp is often the only glow for miles. In that rough country, a baby named Valerie June Carter arrived on June 23, 1929, while the last songbirds of spring were still calling. Her parents, Ezra and Maybelle Carter, had already tasted the strange new miracle of nationwide fame. Only 2 years earlier, Maybelle's quicksilver guitar runs had crackled over radio sets from Bristol to Chicago as part of the original Carter family. So from her very first breath, June heard music in every footstep, ballads rocking her cradle, shape-note hymns wafting through cracked open windows, and neighbors dropping by to trade verses, the way other families swapped soup recipes. That musical household shaped her first memories. When she was 4, she toddled behind her mother around farm chores, clutching a makeshift guitar of broom, handle, and bootstring. Maybelle noticed the child's uncanny sense of rhythm, humming harmony lines before she could recite her alphabet, and she began teaching little June the auto harp, an instrument big enough to swallow the girl, yet delicate enough to let her find her own voice. While the Great Depression ground the nation down, the Carter home stayed rich in melody. Neighbors short on cash still paid in stories and songs, and every kitchen gathering felt like a front porch revival. By her early teens, June was tall, coltish, and bursting with comic energy. The original Carter Trio had disbanded in 1943, but Maybelle was determined to keep the music alive. She formed a new act, Mother Maybelle and the Carter Sisters, with daughters Helen and Anita singing lead, and June, now 14, pressed into service as MC, comic relief, and utility musician. They woke before dawn to play 5-minute spots on Richmond's WRNL, live on the air at 5:30 a.m. June's nerves often tangled her words, so she masked fear with humor, ad-libbing jokes about her unruly hair or the station's weak coffee. Audience letters soon arrived addressed simply to "that funny Carter girl," and the shy teenager learned her first lesson in show business. If your notes wobble, make them laugh so hard they forget. The family's next milestone came in 1950 when the Grand Ole Opry mailed 3 crisp contracts and an invitation to move to Nashville. For June, then 21, the Ryman Auditorium looked as vast as a cathedral and smelled of pine rosin and popcorn. She stepped into the iconic wooden circle for the first time on a blustery January evening. After a shaky run through backstage, she faced the packed pews and blurted, "How y'all? I'm so nervous I just powdered my knees." The house exploded with laughter, nerves melted, and her auto harp chords rang clear. What began as a 6-month trial blossomed into permanent membership, long Opry nights stitched together by laughter, harmony, and plates of cold fried chicken shared in dressing rooms. Life off stage moved just as quickly. In 1952, handsome RCA star Carl Smith courted June with bouquets delivered to the Ryman stage door. They married that summer, and daughter Carlene arrived in 1955, her cradle set within arm's reach of road cases. June reveled in motherhood, but soon tasted the strain of 2 headline careers colliding. When Carl's touring collided with her own commitments, cracks appeared. By 1956, the union dissolved, a rarity and a scandal in Eisenhower-era Nashville. Paparazzi headlines bruised her pride, yet she met every microphone with a joke rather than a tear, turning personal pain into public punchline. Seeking a steadier life, June wed Nashville police officer Rip Nix in 1957 and traded the roar of diesel buses for the quiet thrum of a ranch house beside the Cumberland River. Daughter Rosie followed in 1958, and for a brief stretch the calendar filled with PTA meetings and Sunday potlucks. Still, each evening June found her fingers drifting across the autoharp strings, and every Opry guest spot rekindled the thrill she had parked at the curb. By 1960, opportunity knocked again. Columbia Records asked Maybelle and the girls to open a cross-country package tour starring Johnny Cash, who had just turned I Walk the Line into a national anthem. June first met Johnny in a drafty Texas auditorium in February 1961. He strode over in black, towering and weary, introduced himself with a half smile, and declared, "I feel like I've known you for 100 years." She answered with a quip about his oversized boots, and the two fell into an effortless stage banter that audiences devoured. Their contrast, his brooding baritone beside her quicksilver wit, extended the tour from 6 weeks to nearly 3 years. During that time, June witnessed Johnny's growing dependence on amphetamines to outrun exhaustion. She responded with late-night pep talks, pockets secretly emptied of pills, and hymns whispered across aisle seats. Friendship deepened into something unspoken, yet undeniable. In 1962, June began scribbling a lyric on motel stationery. "Love is a burning thing." She hummed it to songwriter Merle Kilgore, then handed the scrap to Johnny, who added melody and mariachi horns. When Ring of Fire stormed the charts in 1963, the label credited June, but radio DJs rarely mentioned her name. She brushed it off with a shrug, but close friends noted the flicker of hurt behind her grin. Success, she was learning, could be louder than fairness. Meanwhile, her marriage to Rip unraveled under the weight of continual travel and tabloid rumors. They divorced in 1966, leaving June with 2 children to shepherd and a conscience wrestling with guilt. Yet through every backstage prayer, she found herself circling closer to Johnny. She witnessed his darkest spirals, hotel televisions thrown through windows, traffic stops ending in handcuffs, and countless times she was the voice coaxing him back into daylight. Exhausted, she once confided to Sister Anita, "I'm strong enough to leave and somehow not strong enough." In February 1968, during a show in London, Ontario, Johnny Cash paused mid-set, dropped to one knee, and proposed before a stunned crowd. June's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the applause, but she accepted, believing that shared vows might anchor them both. They married a week later in Franklin, Kentucky, Maybelle strumming Wildwood Flower as the couple signed the county ledger. For June, the ceremony felt less like Hollywood romance and more like a quiet declaration that mercy could outlast mistakes. Life as Mrs. Cash balanced glamour and grit in equal measure. The couple's Hendersonville farm filled with Johnny's 4 daughters, from his first marriage, June's 2 girls, a growing kennel of rescue dogs, and visiting cousins who arrived for weekends and stayed all summer. June managed chore charts, rehearsed duets, and still found time to sew the rhinestones on Johnny's stage jackets by hand. When they cut Jackson in 1967 and If I Were a Carpenter in 1970, critics hailed their chemistry. June quietly celebrated that her voice finally rang alongside his on equal footing. Yet throughout the early 1970s, relapses sent June racing down back roads to small-town jails or pacing hospital corridors while doctors flushed toxins from Johnny's bloodstream. She prayed, bargained, scolded, and loved him through each valley, believing the next mountaintop always lay within reach. Amid that chaos, she discovered at age 41, she was expecting their first child together. Doctors warned of risks, but faith proved stronger. John Carter Cash arrived healthy in March 1972. His lullabies sung in backstage green rooms while roadies coiled cables nearby. As the decade wore on, country music tastes shifted toward polished countrypolitan strings, and later raw outlaw swagger. The Carter sisters quietly stepped back from center stage, booking fewer dates, while Johnny's career surged and dipped like a mountain switchback. June filled gaps with charity concerts, television appearances, and tireless advocacy for prison reform alongside her husband. Whenever critics framed her solely as Johnny's sidekick, she seized any chance to spotlight her lineage, reminding interviewers that the Carter women had been touring when radio was still a novelty. Mother Maybelle passed in 1978, and June felt the weight of heritage settle on her shoulders. She began recording family memories on a handheld cassette deck, an oral history meant for grandchildren not yet born. She also returned to songwriting, penning reflective pieces that traced mountain roots and midlife doubts. Though record executives seldom pushed her solo work, the music sustained her, fueling late-night creative bursts after the household fell quiet. Long after the spotlight dimmed, June Carter Cash quietly became the guardian of her family's musical legacy. She worked alongside her son John Carter Cash to remaster old recordings, preserve rare tapes, and share the Carter family's mountain harmonies with a new generation. She didn't seek credit, just continuity. In one interview, she joked, "I reckon if you keep singing the truth long enough, someone down the road will hear it clearer." That line, tucked between laughter, says everything about her mission, not to be remembered as a relic, but as a bridge between past and future. By the early 1980s, the Cash household brimmed with grandchildren, rescue animals, and new struggles. Johnny's health faltered under arthritis and pneumonia, and June's role as caretaker intensified. Even so, she never abandoned the stage completely. Each concert offered a reminder of the teenager who once calmed her nerves with comedy at WRNL. She introduced Church in the Wildwood with a story about her father's rope swing, or broke tension by teasing Johnny for mispronouncing Appalachian towns. Elder fans cherish those moments, sensing the twinkle behind every joke. A late career renaissance arrived in 1999 when June, then 69, recorded Press On, an acoustic album steeped in Carter hymns and mountain humor. The project won a Grammy, and briefly, the industry spoke her name first, rather than in parentheses. She accepted the award with a humble grin, telling the audience, "It took me 70 years to become an overnight success." That line, equal parts truth and punchline, encapsulated her life. Decades of labor finally spotlighted, yet delivered with a wink that invited everyone to laugh along. June has scheduled heart valve surgery in Nashville, cracks jokes with nurses about the hospital gowns, and insists someone bring her auto harp, just in case the angels take requests. The surgery proves more complicated than expected. Johnny stands vigil at her bedside, singing hymns in a tremor-laced whisper. On May 15th, 2003, June Carter Cash slips away. The mountain girl's voice finally quiet. 4 months later, Johnny follows and headlines thunder the passing of a legend. In the echo, June's name lingers, beloved, yet too often introduced as a footnote rather than the melody she truly was. Her impact didn't fade with the final curtain call. For artists like Emmylou Harris, Rosanne Cash, and Brandi Carlile, June wasn't just a name in a footnote, she was a map. A reminder that humor could carry heartbreak, that tradition and rebellion weren't opposites, and that a woman's voice didn't need permission to echo through country music's back rooms and ballrooms. The years after her death would ignite debates over legacy, estate battles, and the uncomfortable question of why country music history sometimes files strong women behind the men they inspired. Those chapters, along with deeper looks at her final creative bursts, her private journals, and the family tapes still waiting to be heard, belong to our next episode. Reflecting on her life, we confront a paradox. June spent 73 years insisting she was just a Carter girl, Yet her footsteps left grooves deep enough to guide artists 2 generations removed from mountain string bands. When history momentarily forgot her, it wasn't malice so much as the convenience of shorthand. Legends sell easier than layered human beings, but legends also leave clues, and June's clues were never buried, simply scattered like wildflower seeds on back roads that required patient walkers to gather. So we close where we began, with a photograph. Johnny stands in his black coat, head bowed, but now our focus shifts to the woman beside him, face lit by a grin that suggests she has already spotted the next joke, the next harmony, the next rescue. Look long enough and the edges of the photo sharpen, colors bloom, and you realize the image was never truly faded. That's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button, drop us a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss our new content. Thanks for watching.